No, this is my first presentation for doing a Power BI user group, and it's a big honor for me. I learned a lot through just free online learning and attending free sessions as well. So I was always excited to give back and get up here one of these days and step up to the mic. I never thought it would be on doing mobile, Power BI for mobile. I thought it might be something cool like summarization tables and DAX, but one of the things that have happened recently was just over the last 12 months, the amount of updates that were coming out for Power BI mobile, and it really got me thinking about how users were consuming the reports that I was building. And even though I spent so much time, behind a desktop, when I was interacting with those who were consuming our reports, I did notice that they were looking at them more on their mobile device. And one of the associates I worked with, they had came up to me to ask me a question, and they pulled out their phone to show me the report. And I just remember almost being just like mortified at the fact that they were going to pull this report out, and I know that I didn't set up anything for the mobile optimization piece for it. So, and I started to think about why I didn't do that, and it would always just be because it wasn't as straightforward as it kind of comes across. It seems like, okay, you spend the time, you build the report in the desktop, and then you're going to be able to set up this phone view and you're going to publish it, but not everything works as seamlessly as you would expect. And that was just one of the things that I wanted to address today as well, and really just look into the new application interface that Power BI has put out, and how you could leverage that and some of the features that are in there to take out some of the back-end work that you're doing on our reporting now when it comes to sharing it for those who are consuming it. So I'm going to do a review of the Power BI mobile updates over the past 12 months. These are a lot of them are focused on the user experience. And then I did some just looking into just what are some of the now what's trending for the user experience navigation patterns for mobile applications. And this was really interesting to go down because you start noticing them in the apps that you use now, and even in Power BI, the different ways that they are trying to help guide their users through this mobile experience and get them to the insight that they need in the least amount of effort in one way. I remember one of the earlier sessions I attended with Brian Grant was doing a training, but he did say that clicks are expensive. So the more clicks that you go through, the longer you're going to lose your audience if you're not guiding them to the right direction. And there's a couple of different patterns that are common use and some pros and cons and for each of those that I put together, and I got some sources that I'll share out at the end of it. Towards the end of it, we'll look at demonstration of optimizing the existing report for Power BI mobile. So I went ahead and looked at a public data set for Airbnb listings in Portland, Oregon, and tried to really make a report that would not be very friendly to convert over to a mobile application, and just kind of the path going down that and what that might look like. Because I think that's more realistic than some of the things that you see, when we're here and we're kind of hacking away at this, and we're layering visuals on top of other visuals, and we have bookmarks and things that are hidden. They don't always translate over to just what a report might look like a service. So I did try to just make it pretty tough and see what that might look like from a user experience. And then also one of the applications that I enjoy that I think kind of goes undervalued, or I don't know if it's just as recognized, is that Windows also has a mobile application that they consider as part of Power BI, and it looks very similar to the desktop, and it's actually what I'm working on tonight. Just kind of a quick overview of how you can download that from the Windows Application Center and what that's like for a user experience versus going through the web portal side for Power BI, because I think that's a great way to also drive adoption for the different reports that put together.
This is all great, Ben. I just also want to say how you're such a great Cinderella story from the community, as you were saying earlier. So this is fantastic.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, it's definitely changed my life, and it's been a journey, a lot of late nights, especially with this data set that I was just working with that you guys will see. But you guys can all have I'll get this file over to you, Greg, because I did try to add some links and just everything else that's in it. And you know, people are interested in just the report itself and how that's set up. You know, I know I'm not scheduled to spend a lot of time on that, but always happy just to get it over to them. I mean, that's how I learned as well. Just looking at the back end of other reports. So, and one of the seminars I was watching when I was kind of going down this rabbit hole of user experience design after I kind of stuck my foot in my mouth 3 months ago and said I'd sign up for this, was that, you know, it was a very, there's 7 billion people on the planet and 4 billion of them have smartphones. And of those 4 billion, I mean, these phones are always connected. Even in your Power BI mobile application, you don't have to be connected to the network to get access to your data because all that is still cached in there. So you can still look at the insights and just the amount of exposure of people that are accessing, you know, web content through their mobile device to not actually start looking at, you know, moving towards making your reports better for mobile device. It's like this planet-sized opportunity was how they put it. And you can kind of see through these updates that have came through Microsoft over the last 12 months. Right now, this is more filtered towards the user experience side of it, but there was a couple, you know, security updates, updates geared towards Power BI report server, but a lot of it was geared towards the user experience for the mobile applications. And, you know, some of the ones that we'll go through today, you know, one is the enabling the single tap interaction with report visuals, adding comments to report content. We have the series shortcut, device searches, report page tooltips. All of these have came out pretty recently, and they all spawned over the Power BI mobile new look too. And this was something that I did really look at because it did change pretty drastically on where they were putting their menu items. And I thought one of the first things I wanted to do when I was looking at making this report for mobile was looking at the Power BI mobile app itself and seeing what is already in there, because I'm not in control over the whole user experience because it's already an application, kind of within an application. So, you know, what have they already provided me that I wouldn't have to recreate in the report itself and make it simpler than what, you know, kind of declutter what would be in a normal desktop report and leverage just kind of the surroundings of the application itself. And so that was kind of an interesting test to go through as well too. And, you know, being able to drill through, you know, from the reports now, like how they set up in the Power BI workspace. I mean, that's a pretty huge benefit when it comes to, you know, how you're being able to consume the content that you have. I mean, the dashboards themselves, when they go over to the mobile side of it, are already semi set up for this mobile view. But one big part of this that I came away with too is that a lot of this has to focus on your information architecture and how you're really going to start deploying Power BI, because in the real world, you know, I'm not the only person creating one report for one consumer. You know, we have multiple analysts across multiple groups who are pushing content up to this, you know, location for them to access every day. And even if I were try to on my own set up these mobile reports, you know, in apps in one location, their view of what they see on their phone, I'm still going to be one of 20, 30 different workspaces that they might be seeing getting set up. So when you kind of have this kind of this grassroots approach that we take, you know, it's something to be cognizant of because it does get confusing for the end user. And one of the things that I was looking at really was where they focus on what that information architecture is going to look like, you know, within your organization and how your users are going to be getting exposed to the application and the content and how you're going to be guiding them through that. So I came across one of the things that, you know, was a new concept on me were these 10 usability heuristics. And these heuristics are basically a set of principles that have been tried and proven when it comes to mobile design and what does work. And at first, you know, reading through these, it was kind of like, okay, what, you know, visibility of system status, you know, I was trying to put this together, but the more I started going through them, I mean, the more that I drew so many more parallels of just building a report. And really the visibility of the system status is just kind of letting the users kind of know what is going on should something not be working. And they put a good example of, when you press an elevator button and you want to know the light turns on, the elevator is coming down. And the same thing kind of goes when you're working with a report, or you're working as a consumer, trying to get through with a Power BI report. And if they're not refreshing, they're taking 10, 20, 30 seconds to load. I mean, that's not a good experience for the users, and it can really deter of people wanting to break habits of the previous reporting that they're going through. Consistency and standards, I thought, was another one too, and it wasn't so much that that what they had compared to with like iPhone or iOS and Android, that they use different areas of where they dock their headers and where they dock their footers, and so it's confusing for end users because some of them you go from the bottom up and others go from the top down. But you just within an organization, when it comes to your branding, the nomenclature, and I have this problem all the time too. Even with this data set that I was using, I'm trying to think of words for occupancy and vacancy, and I'm writing these measures, and I can't even remember what the measure is anymore because I've been using terms so many times, and it's a lot harder than it looks to not if you don't have that planned out beforehand or on. And it's I'm making the report. I just wrote it 20 minutes ago, and I can't remember what it is. And so imagine like if you're trying to set up an enterprise BI system, and you want to be able to share these data models with other groups, and we don't have consistency and standards across them. I mean, that's going to be something that's going to be put a wrench in it as well too. I'm not going to go through all of these. I did put the link up at the top here. I also have a link to 4 other articles and some videos as well that I'll send out. But I just thought they're interesting to read. It was something that was just new on me. I kind of knew what I liked, and I knew I was lying to myself when I just said that no one's using my reports through mobile, even though I knew they were. But it was just kind of interesting to kind of go through this and just see the different parallels and what has been put together before. This was pretty interesting. These are 3 pretty common navigation design patterns, and the hamburger menu is something that you've probably seen before, where you get three dashes at the top of a corner, and it's basically you're hiding everything from the end user and using the screen to basically have the main part of your content. And what happens with that is that it's less discoverable. It's going to hide context. But what you do get is you get a cleaner design and a large number of navigation options. So they're basically putting everything behind this hamburger menu, and once you expand that like an accordion, it comes out, and then you have all these different navigation options to choose. But if it's, and I'm starting to relate these to slicers and filters. And so I'm looking at these navigation options, and I'm looking at Power BI Mobile, and you have so many pixels on the screen. So what are you going to put there? And how are you also going to help that end user be able to slice and dice the report like they normally would? I mean, sometimes there's just I've seen reports where it's just one giant page of slicers and filters. And so this was very interesting to me to see these different types of menu options with these navigation options, because ultimately that is kind of what you're trying to do. You're trying to help them navigate towards what they're going to look for, and whether that's going to be something that's more coerced or something that's going to be left for discovery on their own. I thought was interesting as well too. The tab bar, this is something where you see pretty often across the top of a web page. You'll see a tab bar down, and then from there, there's more drop downs there, and you kind of get this idea that what is most important to this company. So you have at there, it does provide kind of the context of what the organization does based on the tab bar. And normally they'll put their most important things in the front menu and the most important things as the very last item, because they say that people have a better memory knowing these bookends than they would in the middle. And then the priority plus option is actually one that I've noticed that Power BI is using now as well too, where you kind of have this combination of both. And what happens is you hide some important navigation options, and the con of that, and depending on what your role is, but you're assuming the relative importance of navigation options. So you're basically putting there for them, this is what we are going to deem important and we're going to assume important. And I know a lot of this does pertain more towards like marketing, website design, but I mean, I think within an organization, when we work in a frontline strategy group too, and we kind of put, what is going to be of importance for our users and what these key performance indicators are going to be, we're kind of I wouldn't say we were assuming it, but we do kind of try to help guide and keep people on track with the reporting that we do as well. And to be able to do that is something to what you show them and where they can go is something that could be pretty powerful towards the end of it. So that's kind of the overall learning that I got, from YouTube, library books, and a couple other things over the last couple months. But right now I'll go ahead and talk about the data set that we started with. This is public data from Airbnb. And they have a detailed listings of data for Portland, Oregon. Actually, they have it for quite a few cities, almost all over the world. It's actually a really good data set if you're wanting to get out of something else other than AdventureWorks or Contasso. They have detailed calendar data for listings, along with the detailed review, summary of information and metrics, and summary review of the data and listing ID. It is under the Creative Commons reuse and public domain dedication. And I have a link to where they keep this as well too that you can download.
That's a great suggestion, Ben. Fantastic suggestion.
Yeah, and so
make sure you don't show my listing.
Yeah, and so what I'll do is you might see your face, and I apologize if anyone does. I don't mean for that to happen. So what I've set up here is I try to really think, okay, Airbnb, what does their desktop or mobile experience look like, and what would be kind of difficult to transition over? So I think of the reports that I build, and normally they're more interactive based. So here's kind of just like a booking service that you might have with Power BI. You can, and this is actually as of March 15th, 2020, all of the available listings, along with what they have booked to date. And so let's say we're going to look, and we're going to go to April 2nd. And we're going to look for price of 300, and we want a shared room because and so it comes up here. You're going to get your results. You click on a result. You're going to get the cost, 7 nights, $420. You're going to go to see the listing details, and this is where you might end up seeing when it went back that didn't all the way through for that. Oh, okay, I'm gonna close out of here. I'm gonna go over into the desktop side of it. But so this is like more of an interaction, just like you would have any other type of application. And so one of the challenges that we have here is like, okay, I'm going to be using these bookmarks. They're going to get me from one page to another page. These pages are going to be hidden. And with these hidden pages and stacked visuals, they don't always transition over well to what you would do for something in Power BI Mobile. And what I mean by that is that when you go to build the application or the web interface, what happens is if you have these visuals hidden, they're not there for you to drag down. And so then you have to create this other web page or this other page in your report. And when you do that and you publish it up, then it creates another page in your overall report. So before I go into how I kind of approach this and what the final result ended up looking like, I'm going to go ahead and open up the Power BI mobile application on my phone here, and I'm going to share my screen with that. So just give me 1 second here. And so we can kind of take a look at it together, both on the phone and in the desktop version while we do.
So right now you were showing Power BI service, and you're going to pull up.
Oh, right. Previously I was on the. So this is Windows Mobile. So this is the mobile application for Power BI.
Oh, wow. Gotcha.
Yeah, so this is geared towards the end user. So when you come here into the Windows mobile application, I mean, all you're seeing, you don't have that build aspect like you do with the Power BI web service, right? So here it's just a clean version of all the applications that you have and the workspaces that you have and the reports that you can
is now exiting.
And so when you go into the mobile application here, and you can also see your different, your most recent reports that you've accessed. So it's just a quicker and more user-friendly way to view your reports. And so if you're an end user and you're not a report author, and this is a way that you can then present your dashboards and anything else that's going to be refreshed as well too. It has a very clean interface, as you just saw. That's exactly what I was just in. So when I was doing the presentation, I just go into my report, and this is how it builds out. And so it's just like the online service, but it's just a desktop application that you can download. And this is something that Windows has also been updating more frequently as well too. And this can be accessed from the Windows Store. I'll include a link, but if you just go to your Windows here and you just type in, Power BI for mobile, well, Power BI for desktop app, Power BI Windows. Usually it's one of the first things that will come up for the download in their software center, which I'll get over to you. That wasn't part of the conversation though, Greg. Stop getting me off track.
Sorry. Sorry. Keep going.
Yeah. Okay, so let me get my phone set up here.
And I see people posting questions. Feel free, if you have questions, post them, and closer to the end of Ben's presentation, we'll start. He can answer them.
Okay, can you still see my screen?
We can see the sample data set.
Okay, let me make.
You may have to do the share screen. Maybe do like your full desktop rather than the application.
Yeah. Give me 1 second here.
May the presentation gods be forever in your favor. Fingers crossed. There we go. Wow, nice.
Cool. Okay, so we'll have my phone set up side by side, along with the report that was built here. I'm just going to go through what I was looking at doing, but ultimately what the pitch is, right? You build a report in Power BI, you go to view, you go to phone layout, bada bing, bada boom, you got this great report that you can then send out. But as you can see, it's not that straightforward, because now, I mean, these maps, what's hidden behind those visuals don't then appear here for you to be able to use. In addition, the drill through pages that you have also, it becomes a little bit more complicated to be able to navigate in one way or another. And that's why I wanted to really look at my mobile application and see, okay, well, what do I need, for this report? So if I were to go backwards to this, and I look at a slicer pane that I have, and in addition to what is just being shown here, the data for the listings, how can I use this to not redesign a whole application that will still provide the functionality of what I was trying to do within the report itself? And so one of the things that Power BI has, and they've actually updated pretty recently, is that within the app workspace, sorry, I keep having to look at my phone and look at the desktop. When you launch it, is that you have your filter panes, and I'll show you what happens when. Sorry, so this is what a report will look like, non-optimized, when you don't have a mobile view set up. So when you don't have a mobile view set up, it's going to turn towards a landscape view. And actually, this isn't as terrible as some of them too, but it's difficult to be able to start inputting this. You're not really going to be able to utilize the report in this type of functionality. When you have the report with a mobile view, you'll see the icon back here where that has that mobile indicator next to it. And with that, I'll just go over to the report page that is set up for it. It's going to change, automatically. So it'll launch this way. And what I ended up doing was taking the filters, because within the service itself, you can apply the filters down here. So the availability, guest, price, room type. I can take away the navigation needed for a whole page of filters. I can still use all the relative date filterings, the advanced date filterings. So if I want to say is in the next 1 month or in the next week. That can all be done not having to use a slicer panel for that. You go back up here. I want to do my guests and say, we'll do basic. Price is not all. We'll do that. And then now I'll get my filters applied there, and I can just use this. And so what I ended up doing with the web URLs was taking the table that was initially set into, and I set it up over here too, and basically turning that into a slicer. And so these images now almost create like a carousel for the report itself. And that way you can navigate through it a similar way that was done for what was going through there previously. Okay. So as this builds up, so it's a table content. You have the URL picture from this data set that comes through from the listing side of it. And then what happens is you mark that, if you haven't seen this before, table columns, image URL, and that's automatically just going to grab the image from the website and put it through there. And so when it comes into a slicer, you can set it up and shrink it down. So you kind of have this carousel type effect for navigating what you were previously looking at. And then going through the reports itself too. And then what I ended up doing with all the metrics was putting them in tooltips. So now instead of having a dashboard, you have a tooltip that you can then go into as well when you're viewing the report. Now you can see the room types, the entire home, the entire apartment, enrichment, price range, the reviews with the 5 stars. That was a pretty fun one to learn. I don't know if anyone follows Chris Webb, but he had a pretty good DAX pattern and be able to how to turn in ratings into these stars that are half full or not full. So I'll include that one too. That was probably the best thing I got out of this. And then going back towards what we had before here, so no longer need the map view bookmark that we had, because now the map is going to be the main focus of the application when it's launched by the user. And if I don't pay attention, I keep getting kicked out of this. So I'll get back into that one more time. One of the other things that I did add as well too is that there's, in the visuals that you have, there are settings that get set up that are going to help it convert and scale better. And certain visuals have this and certain visuals don't. Line charts, column charts. they're going to be able to scale dynamically with these enabled. If you lock your aspect, if you have some of your visuals where you lock aspect, it's difficult when you drag this over to the phone layout to have it scale appropriately to how you want to bring it to. So unlocking the aspect is something that can really help. And if you find yourself not being able to get this to format correctly as you drag it over here, check those settings, because if you want to start trying to resize these going downwards, it can be difficult to do so. And then going backwards from that side of it, and then with the docked footer, and this is kind of what we saw, or what we saw in the original, where it's that proximity plus design, where down here they're going to put some of your most important items that's going to help you to use application, and those are really what I'm trying to take advantage of when I was trying to reduce the amount of information that I had here in the report itself. And so almost freeing up a whole size of the screen and all of this information, and just moving this info into a tooltip that can be used there was one of the things that really helped out, that the application provides itself. And then adding the buttons to drill down to for the navigation as well. Those were some of the things that the online service provides already. In addition to like what's in here, you can see they have the series shortcuts in the menu itself, pages, filters. You can reset your filters, your bookmarks. So if we wanted to go towards what we had already for the Q&A that I had set up too. I mean, it's a bookmark that comes through as well that you can then get set up and to be able to reuse. And the geo filter that comes through on it is something that will filter based on your location, if you have location data that matches the data that is also within your data set. In addition to like what's inside the Power BI mobile application, what it overall looks like is very similar to what it would be like on the web server side. You have your workspaces that are set up, and then within those workspaces, you have content apps and your frequent and favorite reports that are going to be here as well. Dashboards itself, dashboards, they come with the Q&A assistant. So this button down at the bottom left, you can then start asking information that's set up to about your data. And so the earnings was the calculation basically that was I had set up for, didn't find any information about that, of course not. But the earnings data was really what was set up for people who are renting out their homes and how much income that they had made year to date was one of the calculations that we had there. But the overall point is that, it's having this assistant right here at your fingertips, you can ask questions a lot quicker and getting to that information that you need. And so that was one of the things too that I wanted to incorporate when doing that. And so let's say with top earnings, neighborhood. And so it's going to list then automatically the top earning hosts, by these neighborhoods. And then you can see, what their place of business is like too. So I think the Q&A assistant is one of those things that are going to be very helpful to start using. And think about the Q&A assistant as well as that as people start asking questions, and if they don't recognize the questions that are being asked, you get this feedback loop as a report author. So you can see failed questions, failed terms. So if someone's using the report and they wanted to say, well, hey, we didn't want to call it top earnings, but what was the rent income that they got from Airbnb? And it didn't recognize the rent. I would get a notification and I would show up saying, hey, we didn't recognize this, and you can continue to train the Q&A assistant to be able to do that. So I think that's something that's also going to be pretty beneficial going forward as well too. But from there, that was kind of my what I got, on that part of it.
All right. Do you want to answer some questions? Are you saying you're wrapping up?
Yeah, no, I'm open for questions, definitely.
Okay, cool. So we got a question from Solar. In terms of the limitation of the screen size, do we have different ideas of how you should think of the design of the dashboard?
Yeah, so the dashboard itself, so let me pull up a dashboard too. I think the dashboard already, when you think of a KPI dashboard, you're going to be using card visuals. They're going to be these visuals that already kind of support what they're going for. And so that makes it something that's kind of automated in general. So when you set up a dashboard, so if we go over to the Workspace, and one of the other ones I had, let's say like we were in the sales analysis, and here within the report, we have some of these KPI indicators. So we'll go ahead and ping a couple of these to just some of these existing dashboards. It's already going to ask me to edit for a phone view, but these kind of make the best visuals that are going to be going on a dashboard itself. So I don't really have a full-on dashboard, but we do have something. So let's go over to it and take a look at what is there. And so in this dashboard, things almost automatically scale in a way that's going to help get that set up. And then that's going to link you back to your report, whether it came from the same report or a different report. And so that's kind of one of the benefits of the dashboard itself. And then when you go into the web view, so right now you see it's web view. When you go over to the phone view, you're going to have kind of a similar experience. And then it just becomes of proximity. Where are you going to place what? How you want to load it, and do you want to keep it available for them to use? So let's say we have available listings, we get our app or get our map a little bit larger. So these scale out for you pretty nicely when they're already dashboard tiles. And then let's just go back. And so if I were to go now back to my phone, now I have the dashboard updated through here. And then you can set alerts. So if I wanted to manage the alerts, and if this wanted to change, I can add an alert rule and say, okay, so if these availabilities go above, a certain amount, 200 change or whatever the metric is going to be, then send me an email notification or do something for that tile that we're going to have there for you already, just right on the data set that you have for the dashboard itself. So the dashboard alerts are actually really nice to have, because just right there on your phone, now you don't even have to keep going back to checking on the data. You can just set the alerts directly in your phone based on changes in the data that are going to be pushed down to you. So yeah, that's something that's nice to have on that end as well too. And then you can go directly into the report. So this one itself, and see kind of what's going on with that side of it. So, and let's see, the average earnings increases when the price range is over $300, and it accommodates more than 7. That's profound. Neighborhood is a pearl.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, that's are there any other questions that are coming in there?
I'm not seeing anything else. We'll give any other questions coming through. We'll give it a couple more seconds. Okay, we got one in. Do you have published non-mobile reports where you tell users, look, don't use this in mobile, it's not designed for you, can't make good decisions, and you haven't built a dedicated mobile report? Yeah, so do you regularly differentiate between reports that are meant for mobile and not?
So no, and I mean, it's once it's up there, they have access to it, and that was kind of the conundrum I found myself in, where I started to realize there was a lot of people looking at my non-mobile reports, probably more so than they were looking at my real reports. And that's when, kind of looking at, okay, how did it get this transitioned over? Because when it's in the workspace, whether they have access to it via their app or via a report that's shared to them, just like the report that you're looking at now on my phone, this is a non-mobile report. And all it does is it just flips over to a landscape view. And that's what it's going to do. And so this is one visual, but if you have these types of reports that are a lot larger in one form or another, yeah, it's really tough, and they're trying to look at it and they can't understand, what's going on. And that was one of the things where you don't necessarily, there's probably some type of administration backend that might be able to limit that, but if they have the Power BI mobile app on their phone, and they have access to the report, they're going to be able to pull up the report on their phone, and it's just not going to be formatted well.
Yeah. So I think, as you're saying, it's good to, no matter what report you push out, think of the mobile view and at least have a game plan for it, right?
Yeah, and even if it's and so one of the things too that I had ended up doing. Was going back towards the data set, and even if you just make another tab, and it's just going to be your mobile dedicated tab that you're going to have set up, and you're going to go to your phone layout, and you're just going to throw that one on there, and then you have a mobile tab and you have a home tab. What's going to happen is that when they open the report on their application, it's automatically going to go to the phone view. So whether they're on their phone or whether they're in the report view, when they open up it on their phone, the application or the report's going to open up with that phone view that you've created for the pages. And so almost every page, sometimes should have this phone layout. Or what other people do is that they'll take, if they have multiple pages in one report, they'll just kind of create one tab here and put those visuals all on one, kind of create this correction like this one-page mobile report tab that would satisfy kind of getting across what was needed for that report in general. But that also kind of had me thinking about, does it deem the opportunity to actually just set up a mobile workspace where, so if it's myself and Greg and another analyst, and we're creating report content for someone higher up, would it work to have a dedicated workspace for these mobile reports where we could just package up a mobile version of these reports? And so when they go to their phone, they're not going to start seeing my workspace, Greg's workspace, everyone else's workspace. They're just going to see a dedicated mobile workspace, and in that mobile workspace are going to be the basically these optimized reports for mobile. So it's like a mobile app within the mobile app.
That's a great idea. Awesome. Well, Ben, really want to thank you. We do have to cut over to Brian, give him his time, but honestly, great work. It's been so great seeing your ascension as a Power BI dev. I love the fact that you used this Airbnb data set. I loved how slick it was, showing your phone side by side. Really excited to get this going. Great work, man.
Yeah, and I'll get this out to you, and if you ever want to share it out, sounds good.